Most people believe the biggest financial mistakes happen when money is lost. But in reality, the most damaging mistakes happen long before that. They happen quietly, in decisions that feel harmless, in choices that seem small, in moments where nothing dramatic happens at all. Because the real danger isn't a bad investment. It's the way people think about money without realizing it. It's the habit of reacting instead of reflecting, of chasing comfort instead of consistency, of making short-term decisions in a long-term game. And what makes this even more dangerous is that most people never notice it happening. There's no alarm, no warning sign, no clear moment where everything goes wrong. Just slow, invisible choices stacking up over time. And by the time the consequences appear, the damage is already done. In this video, we're going to talk about that invisible mistake, the one that silently keeps people from building real wealth. Most people don't fail with money because they lack knowledge. They fail because they misunderstand how money actually works over time. They believe success comes from making the right move at the right moment with the perfect information. But real financial progress rarely happens that way. In fact, the biggest breakthroughs usually come from doing something much simpler and much harder. They come from repeating small decisions, sticking with them longer than feels comfortable, and resisting the urge to constantly change direction. This is where most people go wrong, not because they make terrible choices, but because they expect fast results from a system that only rewards patience. In this video, we're going to explore the most common financial mistake people make, the one that quietly holds them back for years without them even noticing. And more importantly, we'll look at how understanding this single idea can completely change the way you think about money, risk, and long-term success. At some point, almost everyone believes they're doing the right thing with money. They work harder, they save a little more, they look for better opportunities, and yet somehow progress still feels slow. That's because most people focus on actions, but ignore the patterns behind those actions. They try to fix results without questioning behavior. They change strategies, switch goals, follow trends, but never stop to ask whether their decisions are aligned with how money actually grows. The truth is, wealth isn't built through isolated choices. It's built through repeated behavior over long periods of time. And that's where most people go wrong. They underestimate how much consistency matters. They overestimate the impact of short-term wins, and they assume that progress should always feel visible. But real progress rarely announces itself. It happens quietly, in habits that don't look impressive, in decisions that feel boring, in patience that goes unnoticed. The problem is, our minds aren't wired to value slow progress. We crave movement, we crave feedback, we crave the feeling that something is happening right now. And that desire often pushes people to abandon the very habits that would have worked if they had just stayed with them long enough. Over time, people start to believe that success comes from making the right move at the right moment. They wait for the perfect opportunity, the perfect market, the perfect conditions. But that way of thinking quietly creates a problem. Because when everything depends on timing, every delay feels like failure. Every mistake feels permanent, and every decision feels heavier than it should. This is where most people begin to sabotage themselves. They change direction too often. They abandon plans too early. They chase new strategies before the old ones have time to work. Not because the strategy was wrong, but because patience ran out. And the truth is, progress rarely feels satisfying while it's happening. Growth is slow, uneven, sometimes invisible. Yet instead of accepting that, people assume something is wrong. So they adjust, they restart, they try something else, again and again. What they don't realize is that consistency only works when it's allowed to compound. And compounding needs time. Quiet time. Uninterrupted time. The biggest mistake isn't making a bad decision. It's never staying with a good one long enough to see the result. Because wealth doesn't reward movement, it rewards endurance. And the people who understand that stop trying to be perfect and start focusing on being patient. At some point, people start to realize something uncomfortable. The problem was never lack of opportunity. It was never a lack of information. And it was never about not working hard enough. The real problem was expectation. Most people expect progress to feel exciting. They expect improvement to be obvious. They expect results to show up quickly. But that's not how wealth is built. Real progress often feels slow. Sometimes it feels invisible. And many times, it feels like nothing is happening at all. That's where most people give up. They assume that if they can't see progress, then progress isn't happening. They mistake silence for failure, and they abandon the process right before it begins to work. This is the moment that separates those who build wealth from those who don't. Because the ones who succeed understand something simple. Time is not your enemy. Impatience is. They don't rush decisions. They don't panic when results are slow. They don't change direction every time doubt appears. Instead, they stay consistent. They repeat the same habits. They stick to the same principles. They allow time to multiply their efforts. And slowly, without drama, things begin to change. Not in weeks, not in months, but over years. That's the part most people never see. And that's why most people never get the results they want. At some point, something important has to change. Not in your strategy, not in the market, but in the way you think about progress itself. Because the biggest financial mistake people make isn't choosing the wrong investment. It's expecting the right decision to feel rewarding immediately. In reality, most good decisions feel uncomfortable at first. They feel slow. They feel boring. They feel like nothing is happening. And that's exactly why most people abandon them. They look for proof too early. They look for validation too soon. They want reassurance that they're on the right path. But wealth doesn't work that way. It grows quietly in the background, while life continues as normal. It compounds when you're not watching. It rewards discipline long after motivation has disappeared. This is why patience becomes such a powerful advantage. Not because it makes you smarter, but because it keeps you from making emotional decisions. It keeps you from chasing trends, from reacting to fear, from constantly starting over. People who build real wealth don't try to be perfect. They don't try to time everything correctly. They focus on staying consistent. They accept that progress takes time. They understand that boredom is often a sign that things are working, and they trust the process even when results aren't visible yet. That's the mindset most people never develop, and that's why the gap between those who build wealth and those who don't keeps getting wider over time. Not because of intelligence, not because of luck, but because of patience. As you've seen throughout this series, building wealth has very little to do with intelligence. It has everything to do with behavior, with patience, with consistency, with the ability to stay calm when progress feels slow. Most people fail not because they make terrible decisions, but because they expect results too quickly. They abandon good plans too early. They change direction too often. They mistake movement for progress. But real wealth grows quietly. It grows when you stay disciplined, when you resist emotional decisions, when you allow time to do what it's meant to do. And once you understand that, everything changes. You stop chasing quick wins. You stop comparing your journey to others. You stop feeling pressured to act all the time. Instead, you begin to think long-term. You move with intention, and you build something that lasts. If this way of thinking resonates with you, you'll find more insights like this throughout the channel. Here, we explore money without hype. with clarity, patience, and long-term perspective. So if you want to keep learning how to think about wealth differently, subscribe to the channel and continue this journey with us. Because in the end, wealth isn't built quickly, it's built quietly.